Hi, everyone. It's Nina Collins, and I'm here today with Lisa Levine. Hi, Lisa. Welcome.
No, thank you.
Lisa's written a book called Midlife No Crisis. And sorry, I can't remember. That must be the same name as your website, or no?
Audacious Health and Wellness is my
That's
website.
right. Audacious Health and
Um,
Wellness
yeah.
is Lisa's website, and we'll remind you of that later on. So Lisa is a health coach, a life coach, and I'm not sure actually how I came across you, but I really liked your message. Do you remember how we met? I can't
I
remember.
don't. You reached out to me and I was thrilled because I'm a fan of the Wolfer and I was so pleased to be invited on.
I'm so glad. Maybe I saw you on Instagram. I don't remember, but I went to your website and then of course you sent me your book and I feel in a lot of ways like I could have written this book, but I didn't. You wrote it. But I completely agree with so much of what you talk about. So I wanted to have you on to talk to our members who I think will also, your message will really resonate. So tell me if you can a little bit about how this came to be, how you started doing this work.
Yeah. So, I started off, I'm a coach and I have a website. And so I realized, oh, I should probably write a blog because then people will be able to get a taste of who I am and, how I'm unique as a coach, what I bring to the table. So I started to do that and I recognized, oh, I really like this writing thing. But I still didn't allow myself to have that vision of, oh, I could be a writer, I could be an author. Like I think maybe it was way back there, but I was more about I'm a blogger or I'm a coach who blogs.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was putting it all out there, putting it out there, my experiences about hitting midlife and my experiences about all the things. And so what happens when you put it out there sometimes, especially when you're not attached to it, is that it can come back. And somebody found it who was starting an imprint called Indelible Editions, and they package books. And they, in fact, did this with me. They did all of the graphics and it's such a beautiful book.
Yeah, it looks great. It really does. Yeah.
Dinah from there approached me and said, "Had you ever considered writing a book?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's what I want to do."
And so you put it out there. Do you
Yeah,
believe in that as a coach? Do you believe in the whole kind of manifesting what you want?
I do. I do believe in that. I noticed, especially when you put it out there, but you don't attach to it, and you can say this or something better, or this in whatever package needs to come to me.
Mhm.
I have to say, for me, in my experience, it almost always comes back in one way or another.
I have to say, I really agree with you too. It's kind of a weird thing to talk about, right? Because it seems, I mean, you can't make everything happen. You can't say, like, I don't know, I wish I had $3 million or whatever. Sorry.
No.
But I completely agree. I've done it in relationships, I feel like, where I've kind of manifested relationships. And it's been interesting this year. Actually, I've been really, really focusing on how we're going to take the Wolfer to the next stage, for which we really need either investment or a partnership or a merger. And I've really kind of said, like, this has to happen. And I don't know if I've been attached to it or not. It's an interesting question what that means. Maybe you can tell us more. But I do feel like things are starting to, I'm starting to figure stuff out. I've been having a lot of meetings and a lot of conversations, and I do think I'm going to get there. So it's a little bit of, it is about manifesting it. What does it mean to not be attached?
Well, I think what it means is not being attached to exactly what it's going to look like. So you're right. Sometimes when you say, "I need $3 million," I need $3 million, it's like you're gripping, you're holding on.
Mhm.
But if you just say, "I need this money," if you're clearer about your why and how it's going to make you feel, and not being attached to the exact number. And honestly, I'm not a law of attraction coach, which there are many of them out there, and they might be able to speak more potently to how that works.
Yeah, no, but that's just interesting kind of talking about it. It's just a
For
side.
sure. But in my experience, really, it's all, and I talk about this in the book too, it's really all about how you want to feel.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think
Well,
it's really important.
that's a good intro to the book because I love in the beginning of the book, you talk about perspective. And I really feel like perspective is everything, actually. Like you take a situation and you reframe it, or you look at it differently a year later or 6 months later. It's all about how we're looking at things. So, talk to us about that in terms of aging. And also, I'm curious, your practice, did you become a coach late in life, or have you always been a coach like for a long, long time? Because, how much of your practice has been kind of geared toward this midlife work, or is that a new thing for you?
No, I'll start with that even. I was in production. I have a history of working I was in the music business for a number of years doing music video stuff and I studied film in college, and then I sort of segued that into production here in Seattle when music videos were pretty much over at that point. But for me, right around the time of, right, I guess I was 49 and I had been doing production work. And slowly but surely, this thing kind of crept up on me where I just was feeling like, is this all there is? Like,
Hmm.
I don't want to talk about how we shot that piece or how I'm going to get to this next client. I want to talk about the universe. Like, I want to talk about deeper things. I want to make a difference.
That's so great.
And
So I just want to interrupt you for a second to say I love that you're saying this because I really do feel when I talk about the wolfer, I often say like these women don't want to be talked down to, and they really are interested in more meaning. And kind
it's
of
a common thing.
yeah, it's really a very common thing, and it's very real.
Of life. It's weird. I mean, I am a little bit. I mean, I'm from the East Coast. I'm like but I've lived on the West for 30 years, so I'm like the perfect amalgamation of cynical and woo woo.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah,
I can
I
roll
relate
my
to
eyes.
that. I'm kind of
Yeah.
yeah. Where are you
So
from on the East Coast?
Philly,
Okay.
Philly, and then I lived in New York for a number of years too, and then
And
LA.
how old are you, Lisa?
I am going to be 58 on Thursday.
You look beautiful. Happy birthday. That's great.
Thank
I'll be
you.
52 in August. No, you do. You look
I
gorgeous.
appreciate it. I really do. That actually that comes back to the question of perspective, but I'll come back to that in a second.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I ended up coaching. I had always really been interested in talking to people, connecting with people. And I twice started embarking on a career of getting my master's in psychology, once in my 20s when I
Oh my
was
God, we're twins. Me too. I did some of a master's program in psychology, and then I ended up becoming a life coach also in my 40s, and I did a master's in narrative medicine. But I always kind of thought, oh, should I become a therapist? So go on. I think I'm
Yes,
actually not patient enough to be a therapist.
that's funny. Well, I learned in my coach training how to be a better active listener. That's for sure. But a couple times I tried to do it. Once at Antioch in LA, once at Antioch here in Seattle, which has a great program. But the first time I got a job offer, I couldn't refuse, and then I got pregnant. So by the time I was kind of in this wait, is this all there is situation, and oh my God, I'm going to be 50. How old is everybody else? Like I started getting obsessed with how old everyone. Google constantly. Okay, Michelle Obama's a year younger than me, but Barack's a year older. So okay, just like doing the mental math all the time. Um, at that point, I realized that I didn't necessarily want to get a master's in that anymore. I realized that what I learned about life coaching is that it's much more immediate, and it's really okay. That happened, but what can I do now? How
Yeah.
can we take how can we move forward? So I became a coach I guess I finished my coach training at age 50, got
Good for
certified.
you.
And then as so often when you are involved in personal growth, which I'm sure is you start to think like, what are the things that light me up, the things that make me go, yes, I want to go in this direction. And for me, it was really always around food and nutrition, feeding people, farmers markets. Like honestly, food is one of my love languages for
Mhm.
sure. And
Mhm.
so I added in a certification and health coaching, and then also became a certified culinary nutrition expert.
Oh, how cool. Actually, I wonder why food isn't in that book, Love Languages. It kind of should be.
I think so. I
Yeah.
mean, for
I mean, it's
sure.
not a love language for me, but it's definitely my boyfriend's love language, I think.
Is for sure mine. And I really recognize that when you're in a transformation, and midlife is an excellent example of this, it really is a mind, body, spirit partnership.
Mhm.
And especially when you're going through perimenopause, um, so much can be impacted by what you're eating and how you're feeding yourself. So
For
it really
sure.
felt like that was a good a good partnership. And so yeah, I ended up working with midlife. I didn't even start working with midlife women straight off the bat, but I did start. One of my first coaching programs that I did was called I don't know, are we allowed to use the F bomb here? It was called
Yes.
Fuck 50.
Fuck
And
50.
so it's all about,
I like
yeah,
that as a program. Fuck 50. Okay.
it was called Fuck 50. Like, don't, you can say fuck it to what you're making 50 mean.
Yeah.
and embrace
Yeah.
it. So that was the beginning of
It's
midlife
super
coaching.
interesting. So your whole second career, so this is interesting in a million ways, right? You pivoted, you had another career, which so many of us experience. You started a new career at 50. It coincided with you turning, you becoming middle-aged in that age. And so you started really focusing and thinking about these ideas. And then you ended up over the last 6 or 8 years writing this book, which is awesome. And you also work with food and kind of wellness. So we published a piece by you on what are you really hungry for, which I really liked. It really resonated to me. Like, kind of, again, at the beginning of this, before we went live, we were both kind of talking about just centering ourselves briefly and thinking about mindful eating, and not even just eating, more kind of thinking about what we really want in our lives. I mean, these all kind of dovetail, right? It comes back to manifesting and kind of being in touch with where we are. So these are all things I'm very interested in. So tell us about your feelings about perspective, your thoughts on perspective in midlife, and how it affects women.
Absolutely. So when you're with aging, we're so influenced by what Mario Martinez, Dr. Mario Martinez, wrote a book called The Mind Body Code, and so what he calls cultural editors, which are how it's basically how we're influenced to think about aging. And so once we recognize that, this whole thing about like 50 is great if you're a bottle of wine, or it's all downhill from here, that you don't have to believe those, and you can start to shift your perspective and notice what you're looking forward to about aging. What feels good? What are you happy to leave behind in your younger life and really excited to get into? So
Mhm.
it's all about perspective. And like I think I say, perks of midlife, you might need reading glasses, but you're infinitely clearer on who you are and what you want.
Yeah.
Uh, it's about when you change the way you look at things, the things you see start to change.
Mhm. So completely true.
And
I mean, it's one of my favorite questions actually to ask people is, what are you looking for? Like, what are you looking forward to? Sorry. It's just an interesting way to think about life, like what's exciting for you coming up. And it's certainly true when I think about my own experience of midlife. I mean, when I started the community and I was 46, I was feeling pretty depressed. My kids were leaving home and I had all these weird physical symptoms that were freaking me out. And now, really in large part, I think because of the community and because I spend all day talking to people like you, like, it's just inspiring to me. Like, I look at all the things you're doing and how, whatever, beautiful and smart and interesting. And like, we realize, of course, it's not bad. Look at all the women around me who are so fabulous, right?
totally. I feel like there's never been a better time to be in midlife because of people like you who are creating these forums so that we can check in and realize that it's not the end, that it's everything is full of possibility. I mean, and I just read an article in the New York Times recently about like pelvic floor health. I mean, that is a new thing. People are starting to talk about.
I know the pelvic floor health thing is super interesting. Like, it barely seems to have existed. I went and saw a pelvic floor specialist a few months ago who was super helpful. And I didn't know that it existed as a specialty, or that it was kind of new, really. Like, I didn't even know about the whole concept of the pelvic floor. When she explained it to me, I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
So I have a funny story. Like my last annual exam, my dog, you know how they have you do a Kegel for them?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I did the Kegel and she was like, that's a really good Kegel. Can you do that again? So I like did it again. She was like, wow, how long can you hold that? So I held it as long as I could. She's like, I'm very impressed. She's like, that might be the best Kegel I've ever had. And not just for someone your age, like the best Kegel. And I thought, I'm
Yeah.
finally like the best at something.
You're the
And
best.
I like how I'm not going to put it on Facebook, although here I am putting it on Facebook. But
Yeah, and that'd be a good one to tell
yeah,
everyone you're the best Kegler.
I know.
So tell us what are the 3 C's and how did you come to them?
Yes. So the 3 C's are community, connection, community, which again, you're providing entirely, connection, which is connection to yourself and connection to other people, which also ties in to community, and curiosity. And curiosity might be a cornerstone one because I find that, there's a quote that I love that I heard Oprah say when I saw her speak, and it was all about how do you have the life you want? It's about being awake in the life you're in. And so when you're being awake in the life you're in and you are engaging in curiosity as opposed to judgment or, oh my God, this is horrible and I can't believe I'm turning 50. Oh my God, what am I going to do? Instead of, oh, I'm turning 50. What am I going to do?
right.
Like it's turning it into curiosity changes everything. It changes how you feel. And again, it changes your perspective. So that's kind of
Right.
curiosity is a big one and community too.
Yeah, I mean, I could not agree with you more. And it's interesting that you like, so you kind of position the three C's as kind of essential things to grow toward and to be focused on for happiness. And I mean, curiosity, I agree. It completely relates to perspective. And I saw Oprah for the first time on her, whatever her last tour was, like before COVID. I saw her at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn. And I had never been like a huge Oprah fan. I didn't watch her when I was a kid. And I saw her and was so blown away by how amazing she was. I was like, oh, this is what all that Oprah obsession is about. She is phenomenal.
Totally. She came, I saw her on the tour before that, which was, I think, called the Life You Want tour, which is how it was, how do you have the life you want? But I went with a whole group of life coaches because I got certified through the Martha Beck Institute, and we
Oh,
were all
cool.
very connected with each other. And it was like, a gaggle of life coaches going to see Oprah. I mean, it really doesn't get better than that.
It does not get better than that. That's hilarious. I would have liked to see your Instagram. The Martha Beck program also is supposed to be incredible. I did my coaching training with a company called IPEC in New Jersey,
Mhm.
and it was solid. It was like 9 months, and I enjoyed it. But I always thought the Martha Beck program would really be the one to do.
It was really incredible. It changed my life in so many ways. And there have been multiple times I've said, if I never coached a day in my life, it would still have been worth every cent, every minute that I spent doing
Yeah.
it. It was great.
It's definitely one of those experiences, coaching training, where I mean, it's fully kind of therapeutic and helps you understand. I mean, I think of so many things I learned in coaching. One of the questions, the whole thing about open-ended questions and um, thinking about how something serves me has been something that really helped me from coach training. Like when you're behaving in a certain way or someone else is behaving in a certain way, and you can say to them, like, I wonder how this is serving you. And I say it to myself all the time, like, what is this doing for me?
Absolutely. And it's great to be able to teach clients how to do that because, and sometimes people are resistant because you're like, I don't want to talk about how this is serving me. I want to complain. I want to be, God damn it, this is not okay. But when you do, it's again, that perspective thing. When you when you get curious and flip the lens,
Yeah.
it, you get information.
Yeah, it's really helpful. Another thing I liked in my coaching training was it's so simple, but those values exercises, of just thinking about what words are really resonating with you now. And it's so interesting to look at how it could change from one day to the next, but certainly 1 year to the next, like what your goals are. I love that. It's so simple and obvious and great. What would you say one of your value words is right now in your life?
Um, Probably intentional
Mhm.
is the one of the word of the year for me, because it all comes back again to that paying attention and being open and doing things intentionally. Like and I don't, I'm not clearly I'm not perfect. I mean I lately I love to, I play words with friends a lot and I will go through various games. And so somehow I ended up finding this particular brand of solitaire and it sucked me in. But what I was noticing was is that I was spending a lot more time on that. I wasn't being intentional.
Mhm.
And I sort of thought about that. And then you know how sometimes those games have ads on them?
Yep.
Well, this this is a woo-woo sign thing. So I'm playing the damn game and I'm feeling not great about it, not intentional, but I'm doing it and the ad comes up for this kind of collagen, live conscious popped
Mhm.
up. I was like, okay, I got it.
Put down the game.
Yeah. So intentional is what I'm striving for. That is
Yeah.
definitely my value.
Intentional is a really good word. Actually, right after I asked you that, I thought, "Oh, that's unfair. I don't have a word prepared. I can't think
I try
off
to come up with a word of the year every year, and then what I typically do is like, I'm not wearing it this morning, but I inscribe it on a key,
Mhm.
and I will often wear it around my neck because it's like the key to what I want, how I want to feel.
That's
And so
beautiful. That's a wait, do you have someone inscribe it? Like, how do you
Etsy, Etsy,
Etsy
yeah,
can inscribe a word on a key for you, like a pretty old, like, antique key?
any kind of key you want. You can do an old one, a new one. It doesn't matter. The prices range, but and I did it one year. I did a ring, and one year I did a bracelet. But now I'm all about the keys because it's right there by your heart. And
Yeah, I love old keys, and in fact, in my
yeah,
drawer back in Brooklyn, I have a bunch of really beautiful old keys. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna inscribe
yeah,
a word. I love that idea,
it's
and then
another way
wear it
to
around.
remind you.
Yeah.
And that just brings it back full circle too, which is how do you want to feel?
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest question. How do you want to feel? Because it's not about the new clothes, right? I mean, none of us here probably need a new dress or new shoes or new whatever, but we will go and we'll get one because of how it makes us feel. It makes us
Yeah.
feel sexy. It makes us feel confident. It makes us feel
It's
whatever it
it's
is.
funny you bring that up because that's actually recently made me feel better. I went and bought some clothes and I felt kind of stupid about it because I have a lot of clothes. And then I thought, well, really truly, I'm not the same person I was a year ago. And how I feel in my clothes changes. And maybe it's okay if I buy new clothes
It's
and
100%
pass them
okay.
on because this is how I want to feel right now. And yeah, the whole how do I want to feel? I remember learning that lesson actually about 7 or 8 years ago. I can't remember if I'd done my coaching program or not, but I read this book. I talk about this frequently in The Wolfer called Finding Your Half Orange. I was single, I was dating, it was post divorce. And I had kept a list of like qualities I wanted in a man. And then I read this book and it pointed out like the qualities don't matter. How you feel with someone is what really matters. How you want to feel in a relationship. And I started really focusing on that. And then I met a great guy, not the one I'm with now, but a guy I was with for like 3 years. And it really did feel like I kind of manifested it. Like I said, this is how I want to feel in relationship. Um, so I love that. I think that's it. I mean, it's funny. We're talking about all these really helpful coachy things that I love.
Absolutely. And so if somebody or is coming to me and they feel like they're in a crisis, I don't know. And a lot of times when you're feeling like you're in a crisis and you feel overwhelmed, you don't know the answers. When you're in overwhelm, it's hard to see bigger, right? In fact, one of the reasons that this book is created in small bites is because it is designed for somebody who feels like they're in overwhelm and can't digest a
Yeah.
huge chapter, 4 pages, clear directives, put it down on your nightstand, and that's one thing you can do. But where was I going with this? So I will say to somebody when they come into my practice, it's like even if they don't know what they want, it will say, how do you want to feel? And what can you do today to help you feel that way? So it's what can you do right now to
This
help you
conversation
feel.
is actually really good for me because I've been having an unusually stressful few days. And I feel like through COVID, um, we got used to so much downtime and now things are just busier and I'm busier at work and they're kind of ramping up and I have just a bunch of things going on and it's all fine. But I'm feeling that kind of cortisol through my body that I don't remember feeling for a long time and I don't like the feeling. And so just talking to you about this is actually really helpful. I may have to sign up for
How
some.
do you want to feel today?
I want to feel calm and productive at the same time. And I think my word actually for this year, if I try and because I do it too, and then I just forget what it was, but it was probably my biggest issue in my personal life for the last few years really has been work, which has kind of surprised me because I kind of fell into creating the Wolfer and I've loved it. But it's hard to build an identity brand or a social platform or a media company or whatever you want to call it, and particularly one that I kind of didn't intend to build from in the first place, right? So kind of I've been constantly balancing my own needs and intentions with what I want for the community. And anyway, so I think my word for this year has probably in some ways been kind of a focus on success, really, on how do I take this really to another level? Not even really sure what my own involvement will be, but kind of where is this going in the future? Um, and so I think how I want to feel is on that path, but calmly.
How do you want to feel today?
And how I want to feel today is just centered. Yeah.
Right, right, right. So then it would be like, okay, what are 3 ways you can feel centered today? And then knowing what they are. I mean, sometimes it's as simple as literally putting your hand on your heart,
Yeah.
activating your parasympathetic nervous system and taking 3 deep breaths. And it
Yeah.
just
And just
everything
breathing, just taking it down. Yeah.
comes down. Yeah. So we can't always go into hawk view and figure the whole thing out. Sometimes we just need to bring it down to mouse view. What can happen right now?
Yeah.
And,
No, I really
I'm a
appreciate
life
that.
coach and I'm a health coach, but I really like to think of myself as a possibility coach. And if people come to my practice and feel like they're leaving full of a sense of possibility and that they have tools to help them move forward, then I feel like my work is done.
Yeah. I feel like we have just a couple more minutes that we could go in a million different directions. If there's something you want to talk about, I'm happy to do that. But I was thinking that it would be helpful to talk about Well, you talk in your book about move it or lose it, which I completely agree with. Exercise is essential at our age. Exercise, water, sleep, getting good medical care, paying attention to all the doctors you need to see, having gratitude. These are all things you cover. I feel like we really are kind of on the same page. But in that article we published by you about listening to what you're hungry for, do you want to talk for a few minutes about that? Kind of what the idea is there?
Yeah, so that is really learning to pay attention to your longings.
Hmm.
What are you really longing for? And it's very much in line with what we were just talking about, which is how do you want to feel? So what are you
Yeah.
longing for? Are you longing for connection? I mean, you could say I'm longing to be in a relationship. I want a partner.
Yeah.
And break that down even more, which is typically connection, love, sex. What are the things that you want in that? And noticing how to break it down, and then honoring those hungers
Hmm.
and figuring out small steps to get to those things. Because it's rarely, I say that, what are you hungry for? Because so often what happens, and it certainly has happened to me and continues to happen sometimes if I'm not paying attention, is I will just overeat, like use food as a way to either disconnect from what I think my longings are, because it's too much. I don't want to deal with that right now, or because I haven't stopped to pay attention to what they are.
Focus. Yeah. So
So,
we may do things like we may overeat or we may overdrink or we may, we act out in all sorts of ways, right?
or
So
solitaire.
solitaire, it goes back to intentionality of kind of being aware of how we're feeling and how we want to feel and what we want. I think the subject of what we want is always very interesting. Like I'm often surprised how hard it is for people to say what they want, to identify what they want.
Absolutely, as women, especially because we're so trained to not do that and to be taking care of other people instead of
Yeah.
taking care of our own longings and our own hungers. So before we go, I have to tell you what one of my biggest pet peeves is, and one of the reasons that I call my stuff aging audaciously, because I noticed that when you're talking about aging gracefully, and I have nothing wrong with grace. Grace is great. But when you talk about aging gracefully, who are you doing that for? It implies
Totally. It's
somehow that you're being graceful. Like it really feels like a patriarch thing.
like,
Like,
fuck
oh,
you.
don't
Yeah.
bother. Be a good girl. Be quiet. Shh, go over there.
Stacey London and I have been having this conversation. She hates aging gracefully.
I,
And our podcast is called Raging Gracefully. But
but
I
that's different.
completely agree with you. It's like you should only be doing this for yourself.
Yeah.
However
So
you
be
want to age.
audaciously.
Yeah.
Take risks. And again, audacious is a word that really it's very but it has bio individuality. Like what's audacious for you might not be audacious for me.
That's
So
right.
age
That's right.
audaciously. Take it on. Aging.
Well, it's
We,
kind of like own it. Own
yeah,
own who you are, own how you want to be, own how you want to age.
entirely. And we don't have to get old. I mean, we aging is a privilege and it's going to happen no matter what, but we don't have to get old. We can shoot. Getting old is all in your head. It's optional in my opinion.
Nice. I love talking to you, Lisa. This has been so great. All right. So for everyone who's out there listening or watching, Lisa's book again is called Midlife No Crisis, an audacious guide to embracing 50 and beyond. And her website is called
Audaciouswellness.com. And you can find me on Instagram. I really need a branding expert, but you can find me on Instagram at the Lisa Levine. And the reason it's a the Lisa Levine is because, especially if you're from New York, right, there are a million Lisa
there are a
Levine.
lot of Lisa
Tell you.
Levines.
And when I wrote the book, I thought, oh, I want author recognition. So I am the Lisa Levine on Instagram.
Nice.
And I am
That's audacious. I like it.
I thought so.
Yeah. Well, I will definitely make sure I'm following you, and I'd also love to meet you in real life. So if you're ever in New York, and if I'm ever in Seattle, let's try and remember
I'm
to
going to
find
New
each other.
York. I'm actually going to New York June 5th. My mom lives in the city.
Oh, nice.
So I'm
Well,
going to go be there for about 12 days.
okay, well, text me. I'm going to Iceland the 6th to the 11th, but maybe right at the end of that or something. I'm taking one of my daughters. But yeah, I'd love to meet you. It sounds like we have a lot in common, and you're fun.
I would love that. Back at you.
All right, take care. Have a great day.
You too.